Back in that bag again. Whoa, yeah. Hey. Back in that.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Splash City Basketball Podcast, where we're talking everything basketball related in the land of 10,000 lakes. I'm super excited for this episode because I'm bringing on a special guest today. I'll be interviewing J Schwartz, the director at the East Wave Basketball AAU program. I coached with Jay my first year in the Twin Cities down at Park and Cottage Grove, and he got out of the high school ranks, started this AAU program, and I'm really excited to talk to him just about the game, about his program, his philosophies, and how that translates to the athletes that they're coaching. They built out a huge coaching staff with some pretty notable names on it, and so I can't wait to talk to Jay. I also wanted to talk a little bit about with the high school seasons kicking off, girls mostly last week, boys starting mostly this week, just some resources to follow the game and follow teams if you want. So I got a list of some of the ones that I've been using for the last few years. Hopefully that helps you. So a lot to talk about on this episode. The basketball season's in high gear, lots to discuss. So let's get into it. All right, I'm really excited to have with me today J Schwartz. He's the director of the East Metro Wave AAU basketball program. Jay and I first coached together, let's see, I think it was 2010-ish time frame. He was the head coach at Park and Cottage Grove for a handful of years. Prior to that, an assistant for a long time. And really excited to talk to Jay because we were just talking about how I've had parents coming up to me asking me about AAU and how that works. And I'm also just curious in the change, even from when I coached 10 years ago, the game's changed a lot. And I want to just talk about that and how that changes and how you train kids and stuff. So again, Jay, thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time to join the podcast.
No problem at all, Steve. Great to catch up with you.
It's been a long time, and I think it's really cool. I've been reading about the East Metro Wave and your program, but I kind of want to start talking more about that transition because I got out of high school coaching as well, and there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of different factors, and I think you're seeing that even like at the college level, the changes in the game and older coaches getting out, people maybe not sticking with it as long, like the Bob McDonalds of the world are pretty rare nowadays. But just curious on like what was your thought process on going from high school at Park to starting an AAU program?
Yeah, good question. I always wanted to coach. I started coaching when I was 18 years old, and I was a college student, and I coached at some little Catholic school up in St. Cloud. I went to St. John's, and then ended up at Sartell for a year or two coaching ninth grade. And then when I got a job at Park, that's all I ever wanted to do. I didn't think there'd ever be a time where I didn't have a basketball team. And like you said, the pressures, the year round. I mean, I think that's what it is. When they allowed high school coaches to coach their players in the summer, and that would have been way back, I mean, back late 90s, early 2000s, I think. It really started to take a toll, and it became a year-round thing. And then all those pressures, like you said, about being a head coach and expectations, it really wore on me. And in reality, it just wasn't fun anymore. It became a job, and it was never a job. It was a pleasure to do it. And so I think that's where I decided to just hang it up because I couldn't let it go. I'd wake up on Saturday mornings and my mind had already be going for Monday, what we got to do to get better. And it wore me out. And I wanted to I still loved basketball, but I wanted to make sure that I um, did it on my terms, I guess, a little bit more than when it was back then. And really, I don't blame anybody for that. That's just how high school sports have become. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think, for me, when I had kids, that changed the game a lot too, right? Like my son was only like one. I coached for one more year, but then you're just kind of like, God, you're gone a lot. And kudos to those families who do that and like just say, hey, that's who we are. And I know so-and-so is going to be gone until 10:30, 2 nights a week, 3 nights a week or whatever. And, but yeah, it does wear on you. So like, AAU, I think, has some stereotypes involved with it. so when you sought to start a program, what were kind of your core, like, this is how we're gonna be. This is what makes us different, and like can cut through the noise of all the other AAU teams and programs out there.
Yeah, good question again. What happened was my daughter Regan just decided she didn't want to play softball anymore, and it kind of for the same thing. It got too, she's like, I don't like softball enough to do 2 3 hour practices and get to games 2 hours early. So you do an hour practice before the game. She's like, I really love basketball and I want to play AAU. Well, I knew nothing about it. Never thought about it. And I started doing my research and I saw costs and I saw there was really nothing on our side of town near Cottage Grove or Woodbury. There was very little. Everything was on the west or the north. And I thought, well, I'm going to pay this money and I'm going to go drive across town twice a week for a coach I don't know. And I thought, I think I could do this. And I just started to do some research and it doesn't take much to get your AAU club approved. You fill out some paperwork and you pay a little bit of cash. It was like $65 or something. I don't even remember. And that's how it began, was because I thought, well, I can do this and not have to do those other things. So at first, and my principles have kind of changed over time, but the first were just make it local for people on that side of town, make it affordable, and give parents choice. I didn't like this. You got to be at 90% of practices and everything comes before basketball, because that's where I just came from as a high school coach, and that didn't feel good. And so I didn't want to do that to other parents as well. Now, that being said, I just want to say there are tons of options in AAU, and our program and our philosophy isn't for everybody. And so this isn't bad mouthing anybody who does those things, because they have a purpose and a reason for it too. And they have an audience, and they have people who want to be a part of their program. I just didn't want to run my program that way.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. There's for some it's exposure, college, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. For others, it's opportunity to get better, to make a team. And there's probably far more of those people, those players, those athletes out there, right? Like I mean, the number of Division 1, maybe parents' expectations, there's a lot of those, but the actual number of kids who are making that jump, that need that exposure at the EYBLs or the Peach Jams or whatever, that's such a small number. Most kids are there to get better, to play more basketball, to have fun.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we strive for, was we wanted kids to have fun, and we wanted to give those mid-level kids a chance. One of our philosophies, I'll tell parents when, because I just want them to call me. I just want to talk. I want them to have all the ins and outs of our program, so nothing surprises them when we start. And one of the things that you say is, if your kid shows up and he works hard, we'll turn your C player into a B player. We'll turn your B player into an A player, and we'll turn your A player into an elite player, and we'll let them go. Like, if we don't have a team that suits your kid, we'll tell them. We'll say you should go play somewhere else where you can keep evolving and improving as a player. So I think a couple of those things makes us a little bit different than other programs.
Yeah. Another thing I read that I really love as a parent of a kid who loves two sports, maybe not a three-sport athlete, but just that, because I know the Star Tribune, I saw they had something this week about multi-sport athletes and how that's dwindling, and it's really sad, because when you see some of the best athletes, and now granted they're great athletes, they can pick up any sport, but like that Bjorgard kid for Edina football, right? He's a hockey goalie,
Yeah.
he's a stud in football, and so like, but there's so much pressure on parents and kids to be at every practice, be at every game, get at every training you can in, that idea is kind of, it's tough. It's tough to manage as a parent and an athlete. And I love that East Metro Wave that you guys built, kind of encourages those multi-sport athletes.
Yeah, and it's not lip service either, because I think there is a lot of lip service out there and I'll say this, not necessarily in the AAU programs, I'll say in the high school programs and sharing athletes. When I was there was a lot of lip service and not a lot of follow through. And I tell parents that all the time. I say, we have two practices a week for an hour and a half, and we rotate the days so that if your kid plays soccer on a Monday, Wednesday, their practices for us aren't going to always be Monday, Wednesday. They might be Tuesday, Wednesday. They might be Wednesday, Thursday. And we do that so that we don't exclude them entirely from our season. And then we go a little step further. And again, this is a pro to some people, but it's a con to others. We say your time at practice doesn't influence your playing time, right? Because again, we're gonna put our money where our mouth is, and we're gonna say we promote multi-sport athletes. So when we get to the games, we go equal playing time into the last 7 to 9 minutes of a close game, and then it's fully coach's discretion. And if that means a kid who's been at soccer all week is getting it done that day and doesn't come out of the game in that last 7 to 9 minutes, then that's how it goes. And so I think that is one of the places where we promote that multi-sport athlete aspect. I also say, how many as a head varsity coach, Steve, how many birthday parties did you miss? How many family occasions did you miss? How many trips to the zoo or whatever it might be, vacations? And I just said I'm not going to have a program that makes kids miss that. So I always tell parents, if grandma's birthday is on a practice night or a game night and your family decides that that's more important on that night, go to the birthday party, go to the soccer practice, go to the family event. There's no penalty on our end. Now, he's missing out on time to get better individually because we devote 50% of our practices over the course of the season are in individual skills. Like that is our number one thing. We're going to love your kid and we're going to make them better. So those are, again, just kind of continuing on how some of our core tenets evolved over time as well.
Yeah, that's huge. Not to turn this into Steve's wine line, but I did coach for like 13 years, and I never took a vacation in the winter for like 12 of them. I took one, and boy, did I hear about it from parents during the season. I missed
Yep.
one game, and I heard about it.
Yep.
So, yep, totally understand. But okay, so you brought up training, individual. 50% of your practices are devoted to individual training. I'm curious, what are the biggest changes you've seen in how kids train or how you coach, how you train kids in the last, I don't know, let's just say 20 years. But there's been a lot of changes even in the last 10, I'm sure.
Number one for me is I always tell players, I don't think I'd make a high school roster anymore. Not that I was a superstar in high school or anything, but the skill level has increased so much. And to give you just an example from that last spring, I had a guy who's coached ninth grade basketball coach for me for the first time. And he kind of came to me late, and all I had left was a fourth grade team for him to coach. He goes, I'll try it. And I went and watched him practice, and he's kind of doing some things. And I said, hey, you coach ninth grade. You can coach these boys like ninth graders. And he's like, well, I don't want the parents to get upset. I said, try it and then meet them where they're at. And the reality is, skill wise, these fourth graders are doing things that these high school boys can do without a problem. They see it on TV, they see it on YouTube, and they go do it. Um, so I think that to me is the number one thing, that they're doing moves, Steve, that weren't even around when you and I were that age. They've been invented since. When I was younger and I did individual or small group trainings, there was no Euro step in the United States when we were
Right.
little, Steve.
Right.
How do I teach it?
Yeah.
I've never done it.
No.
So the skill level is through the roof as far as the things these kids can do with a basketball that we just couldn't do, or didn't even
Yeah.
have the imagination to do.
Right. That's part of it. Yeah, like Euro floaters. Like I don't
Yeah.
remember anyone really shooting floaters growing up. Even in the
No.
NBA, hardly anybody did. I mean, maybe Tim Hardaway was doing it or something, but not many. So, what's the downside? Like, do you see any negatives in the game nowadays with kids? Like, are there things they're not picking up because there's so much skill and training work and there's so much individual work being done?
Yeah, I really do. And I think, we know Steph Curry changed the game of basketball. I mean, now kids walk into a gym and the first thing you want to do is, light a shot up from half court, like Steph. But I think what they don't do is they don't watch how Steph comes off screens and how hard he works to get open and how many screens and how many different ways he comes off of screens. I don't think they see how to use a screen. If your guy goes under, you fade away. If he chases you, you curl. Um, and then even when he catches the ball, how are his feet? Where does he catch the ball? When he swipes it through, does he rip? Does he swipe? Does he catch it reverse? With his back to the basket, he's got to pivot to get open. How does he pivot? And when I did trainings, I realized the number one fundamental thing was kids first, how they caught the ball, and then their first step. And I would see the most improvement in players when uh, uh, teaching them just about their first step and a big north-south step to the basket. Forget all that fancy stuff. Get your step by that guy and beat him on the first dribble. And so that to me is still one of the things that we lack, and it's hard to teach kids because they want to dribble the ball 6 times and do all the moves, which again, don't get me wrong, are still important. Finishing moves are important, but I also think in today's high school game, if you have a go-to move and a counter move, you're probably a pretty good player. And then if you're probably a really good player if you have a go-to move and a counter move on both sides of the court, whether it's a post player or a perimeter player, then you're probably a really good player. I don't think you need 7 moves, I think you need 2. And then of
Right.
course the higher level you play, you might need a third, but um, master those. And I think that's where we get lost a little bit in some of the fancy, the more for show than anything else. So, but I'm also old,
100%, I
Steve.
agree. Oh, I mean, we're all getting older at this point, and I take it over the alternative. But I'm gonna make sure my son listens to this because I've been harping on him about the catch the ball and immediately hits the floor, and we're not going anywhere. We're side to side. I'm like, you gotta get north south. Um, and I do think that's mixtape, that's YouTube videos. It's there. I find kids. I don't know if you see this too, but I find kids get so much more enjoyment out of watching someone fall on defense than they do actually making the shot.
Yep. Yep. All that celebration and hype. And that's what gets the likes, Steve's. They want
Yeah,
all
I
the
know.
likes on social media.
I got to
While
work on
we're
my celly.
Yeah, we are really sounding old now.
Yeah.
But also I think another one too that I learned from some of my mentors, but like was finding terms to differentiate those things. So like when you were talking about your son or players in general who dribble and don't go anywhere, I always talked about is that's a bounce. A bounce doesn't do anything for you. A dribble has a purpose.
Yeah.
And so, those key words like that, I think help kids. That was a bounce, and they go back and do it again. Show me a
Yeah.
dribble.
Yeah. I
So
love that. That's brilliant. I'm going to use that if you don't mind. I'm getting a lot of
I stole
information
it
for
too.
free, by the way. Oh, okay. It's the sincerest form of flattery here.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, you were talking about Steph, and I think one of the things we were talking to our sixth graders about the other day was pace. And I think that's another thing that's kind of lost a little bit in some of the training is just how to play with pace. Like you don't have to be the quickest guy. Tyus Jones is a great example of this, but you need
Yes.
to know when to be quick and when to slow. And I think that's another thing. Granted, there's different kids have different abilities in this, but I think that is such a huge part of the game that a lot of times you don't, as a student or a youth player, you don't maybe notice that part of it. But that, like you said, how is he getting open? He's changed the pace of his cuts specifically. I'm always just amazed at how good a condition he is too.
Yes. Yes. Uh, I was thinking of another example, but a couple of years ago when the Wolves had Kyle Anderson and how
Talk
slow
about
he
pace.
played. Yeah, slow mo. I mean, yeah, his nickname. But watching him, I have season tickets to the Wolves, so I go to a ton of games. And watching how he would just hesitate. He's the first guy I remember, and I wasn't a huge NBA fan until about 4 years ago. He's the first guy I remember who would stop on that one foot and just stand there. Even when he had the ball in his hands and let the defense do whatever it's going to do, then finish. And now like it's evolved. Jaden McDaniels is probably the best guy that I watch play that does that. So again, even not even change of pace with the ball or before you catch the ball, but after you make your move, I think that's evolved. Even in the last 4 to 5 years, it's come so far. And even I think Anthony Edwards credited Luca Garza for teaching him how to do that. So it's crazy. It's not just the slow guys like Slow Mo or Garza. It's Ant using it too, and Jaden
Yeah,
McDaniels who are freak athletes. So that
yeah,
pace of play to me again was never taught. 15, 20 years ago. And now I mean, it's fully integrated in our practices as much as we can put it in, because again,
Yeah.
kids love it when they use it and it's effective, then they're like, how did I do that? Well, here's how you did it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The success breeds that confidence for sure. Um, so let's talk a little bit about like the, I guess, AAU mindset, maybe a parents, and this might not just be an AAU thing, but just like how have you seen, I mean, I think we can all agree probably parents are a little bit more involved. There's more money, right? There's more time and money invested into athletics, and specifically basketball than there used to be. But like, how have you maybe not even how have you seen that change, but just how have you kind of learned to adapt to it, or work with parents on expectations? You talked about playing time a little bit, but like how involved they are. Like, what's your kind of approach? Talking to parents as you're bringing kids into your program.
Yeah, I like to tell them, one, do your research, and I'll help you do the research. Like, tell me what you're looking for, and I'll point you in. If I don't think our club is the best for your kid, like before he comes to a tryout or she comes to a tryout, like what are you looking for? Are you looking for, to get noticed, to get seen? All right. Well, there's some clubs that they're on the Nike circuit, they're on the Puma circuit, the EBYL. I don't even know the acronym, Steve, but you said it earlier. Yeah, those clubs, go to them. They're great, right? And that's probably not us. I mean, we've got some clubs that play at a higher level, but not there. So my thing is you got to do your homework as a parent, when you do this, or when you're looking into this AAU stuff. And I think coaching, whoever the coach to me is the number one thing. Like, you got to know who that coach is. You got to do your homework on that coach. Um, and I agree with you on the parent thing. Like, they've got so much money into this, and I understand where that, where the pressure comes from. That, so much time every weekend, all year round. I mean, I would have given anything to play 100 basketball games a year, huh, Steve? We were lucky to play 20 or 25 in high
Yeah.
school. Um, and now they're playing so many. So I get they've got a lot of time, they've got a lot of financial, they got money into it, and they want results. So the good thing about AAU for me is I always tell parents, you're a free agent in June, or early July, and you get to go find something that fits you better. And that's the best part of this. That's the great part for me versus high school, is every year you're a free agent. And you can come test run us in the fall in our short little fall season. 3 quick 2-game tournaments, about 16 practices. Try us out, see what you think. Um, so try us out for some trainings. So there's all these, and then you're not stuck. You're not stuck for 4 years, which also has changed quite a bit since you and I coached high school, about the amount of movement. But to me, that's the important piece that I tell parents, like, do your homework, and you're only locked in for one spring. It's not the end of the world.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's I could see the downside of that, right? Like there's a lot of like, oh, I'm not happy, I'm gonna move, I'm not happy, I'm gonna move again. And you see that in every you see it in college, you see it in college coaches. I mean, Lane Kiffin here. Now we're moving on already. But so I mean, but I do agree. Like for parents, it gives them options, right? And I think if you're upfront with them. Question though, you talked about coaches. I feel like there's a lot of programs who you don't even know who the coach is when you try out. How would you? Not to say you guys have that situation, but how would you talk to a parent who says like, I don't even know who my coach is for my son. So how could I, or daughter, how could I approach that?
Yeah, we really work hard to try to have those coaches in place. Now, we've grown every year in our existence. So a lot of times there are a couple teams at the end where I'm like, I'm not sure yet, but I'll do my best. Um, so there is a little blind faith there for sure. That's why we put all our coaches on our website, and they all have bios. Everybody, I think I'm going to say 90% of the coaches who coach for us have their bio there, and some haven't coached for us for 3 or 4 years, but they're still on there because we've had people come back. So that, yeah, and you're putting a decent chunk of money into something a little blind, and that's no fault of the organization. It's just sometimes it's just growth, and you don't know how many coaches you're going to need until maybe a week before the season. And
Right.
especially, we've grown a ton, but I mean, we're not even close to the Crossfires or the Heat or the Fury on the amount of teams they have. I mean, I don't even know how they do it that way. There's another part too of a lot of parents want to get away from the parent coach. They've had bad experiences with the parent coaches, and I know some youth organization, like a lot of I got a handful of coaches who are coaching traveling basketball this winter for that very reason. That some of the community teams are going away from parent coaches as the players get to sixth, seventh, eighth grade. So um, that's been a good thing for my coaches to get a little more experience out there in a different venue. Um, but yeah, it's a tricky thing. There's no great answer to that, especially when a director doesn't have, hey, this is going to be your coach.
Yeah. Yeah. I got one more question. I'll get you out of here. Again, I appreciate your time. I want to go back to the kids. So you have a player come to you. If you could give them like, not the East Metro Wave basketball pitch, but like just in general, what's your advice to a kid who comes to your program, wants to get better, wants to improve for whatever purpose? Like what's some of the like here, here's my advice to you as a player.
Yeah, and again, we deal with a lot, like stars are stars, right? The superstars are the superstars. The all-state kids are the all-state kids. Um, they have their individual trainers and they're getting told what those things. I'm kind of that underdog guy. I want to talk to those mediocre kids, and I want to tell them do the things that other kids won't do. Um, get an offensive board. Talk on defense. God, I just go to games sometimes and I look and I'm like, how do they defend when nobody's saying a word to each other? I don't know. Um, defend, lead. There's another one. Just lead. Be a great teammate and do the little things that other people don't do that coaches can't take those kids off the court. Again, not they can't have five. Rarely do you have a team where you got five scorers. So you got to do those things that the other kids won't do. And one of those would be, and I don't want to be negative, I try to do like you're in control of these things, but don't turn the ball over. That's going to be a quick way to get you out of the game as a role player. Be strong with the ball, be sure with the ball, and then do all those little things that other people don't want to do. Pick up full court if that's what your coach wants. Um, that's what I talk about. Know your game. An open shot isn't a good shot for everybody. Sometimes you're open for a reason. I know that from experience.
Yeah.
So um, I didn't get guarded out on the three too often, Steve. So know what's a good shot for you, and be able to knock that one down. So that's my advice. And then if real little kids, I would say work on those fundamentals. They're boring. The footwork, the catching, the having your feet set when you catch the ball, a go-to move, a counter move, to build your skills. So those are some of the things I would say. They'd be done
I think
listening
this
like
is
2 minutes of
exactly
talking.
why. No, no, no. This is why I joined your staff because first of all, you started with like underdog, maybe not the most skilled. And I'm like, okay, he's talking about me. Second of all, I agreed with pretty much everything you just said. I watched a video about TJ McConnell the other day, and he basically was talking about how he got to the NBA and he was like, I got to have a thing. What can I be really great at? And he said, I'm going to be so in shape, I'm picking up full court. And I think that's just so sometimes forgotten. A lot of kids want to be the star, they want to score. That's the cool part of basketball, but there's so many amazing ways to impact a game and they don't show up in box scores or maybe they do and they're not the most sexy stats, but I think you're spot on and I love the way you just laid that out.
Yeah, and those guys are the guys that you despise playing against. You'd love them if they were on our
Yes.
team, but you despise them in every other facet.
Yep.
Patrick Beverly, there's a good one.
Mm.
Despised him in every team he was ever with until he was a Timberwolf, and then I'm like, God, I like this little agitator.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, got to the playoffs. He's on the scoreboard. Let's go.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I mean, like
That's
that's what OKC has right now, though, right? Like they got Cason Wallace, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso. Like these guys are just Hartenstein's a garbage player that's just rebound, defend, like little things, and then they got the big time scores. But Without
Yeah.
those other guys, they're not,
Yep.
whatever, they 20-1. I mean, unstoppable. So
Yes.
crazy.
Yes. I gave away my
Uh,
Thunder tickets the next time they come to town. I don't want to watch them, Steve.
Looked pretty good last week against them. Two bad turnovers in the late part of the game. Otherwise, we were right there. So, um,
Yes. Yeah, that was
we'll
disheartening. It was a lot better effort than the Suns game on that Friday night.
100%.
That one
Yeah.
crushed
So
me.
I was at the Celtics game the other night. That was my first of the year, so I'm jealous you get to go to a lot of these. But yeah, they're a fun watch. Hopefully, they can keep it going tonight against the
Yes.
Pelicans.
Yeah,
So.
let's hope so. Oh
Um,
yeah, it might be halftime here now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, again, J Schwartz from the East Metro Wave AAU basketball program, former coach at Park Cottage Grove. Jay, thanks so much for joining. This was super fun. We could go do this probably for another hour, but we'll save it for another episode down the road.
Yeah, Steve, thank you so much. And it's rare that you cannot talk to somebody for a decade or a decade and a half and then just pick up right where you are. That's how great of a
Yeah.
guy you are, Steve. So I
Oh,
appreciate you.
before I forget, I got to ask the most
Yes.
important question. Are we still Duke fans
Yeah.
over there?
You know what? I don't even watch any college basketball anymore because nothing makes Duke Duke anymore, Steve, because
Uh,
they have a full new roster every single year, you
no,
know?
no
So
Coach
I
K. I
really
know.
don't. I watched almost no NCAA tournament stuff the last like 2 or 3 years because there's no. So can I tell you one quick thing? And I promise. I came home from a Wolves game last year on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and I turn on and right the Maui Invitational, right? That's Thanksgiving weekend, right? And I
Yep.
think it was
Yep.
Kansas, Michigan State, and it was like 3 minutes to go in the second half, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna watch this game, right? Now in the old days, Steve, you know this, you would have known at least 8 players on both those rosters, maybe 10. Okay. I watched the last 3 minutes of that game. I knew one player. And the only reason I knew that one player is because I coached against him, the Trey Holloman from Cretan.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Who's now at
That's it.
NC State? He's not even there anymore.
No, that's the only player I knew on both rosters, and I shut it off with a minute to go. I'm like, this is yeah. So again, sorry, I'm showing my
Well,
age again.
no, the NIL has helped a little bit. It keeps them in college. They just might be on a different
Yeah,
team every year,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, yeah, for sure. So, all right. Well, again, thanks, Jay. Appreciate it. I'll let you go. And this was great conversation. Hopefully, I think the listeners will find a lot of valuable information as, I think tryouts probably start in January, February, right, for AAU. So,
yeah.
uh, yeah,
Mid-February for us, and then the high school are in March. So you can go to eastmetrowave.com and check out what we have to offer.
absolutely. And Instagram, I believe, East
Yeah,
Metro Waves on
Instagram,
Instagram as well. Facebook.
Facebook. Yep.
All right. So if you're on the east side and we're looking to uh, join an AAU program, I mean, it's pretty hard to beat that pitch, man. Great job, Jay.
Thanks for the opportunity, Steve.
All right. Take it easy. Thanks. All right. Now I want to turn to the apps, websites, tools that I use just to follow some of the local Minnesota high school teams and players. There's probably others out there, so I'm always open to hear what others are using, and maybe there's some local ones and things like that, or some different apps, or especially for recruiting, there's probably a lot of different options. But these are just some things that I use to follow the high school game, scores, things like that. And so I just wanted to give that as we start kicking off the Minnesota high school season. The girls kicked off last week for the most part. I know there were some boys games last Saturday and Friday, but most of them started tonight as I'm recording this, the 2nd of December. So I just wanted to get that out there so you could kind of follow the teams and check in every once in a while. I'm going to start with just kind of like data, just strictly scores. The one that's been around for a long time is Minnesota Scores. So it's minnesota-scores.net. This was like early 2000s-ish, and really at the time was, kind of one of the only services that you could look at for all scores, updated at night after the games. I remember calling scores in and things like that when I was coaching to the different media sources, and this was one of them. What they're most known for probably now is, and this was maybe even 15 years ago, was the QRF, or Quality Results Formula. It was kind of a computer metric that helps some teams, or sections, like sections sometimes would rank their teams because that takes out the objectiveness of coaches, right? Like I don't want to rank this team number 3 in the section because we're going to be number 6 and I don't want to play them. So I'm going to kind of screw with that a little bit. So this kind of took that out of the equation. There's still some controversy with it, but the QRF has been used to seed sections and in different sports. So that's one of the cool features of it. As far as I know, it's still up and running. It's one of those that nowadays it's maybe a little bit antiquated and maybe there's better solutions out there, but you can still find all the basketball, boys and girls, most of the other sports as well. Football, I know it's used some. So you can find those scores up there at minnesota-scores.net. So that's one of them that's been around for a long time. Another one that I was introduced to from my brother-in-law and my sister, whose girls play high school basketball here in Minnesota, is Minnesota Score Feed app. So if you go to the App Store or Google Play Store, it's Minnesota MN Score Feed. So that's another app that they use, and they really like that. Similar to other, just basically scores, updates, and it is pretty helpful. Also good for like playoff brackets and things like that when you get into tournament time. On the I'd say like day-to-day more written analysis of it, there's a gentleman named the Czar. I got to be honest, I'm not 100% sure what his real name is, but everybody calls him the Czar. He's the Czar of Hoops. It's a tribute to former NBA coach Mike Fratello. I've been following the Czar for, I feel like, as long as I can remember. For sure since 2010 when I moved to the Twin Cities area. The Czar covers the sections. He does breakdowns of each section and ranks the teams, and then he goes to the games and he'll talk about the concessions and he'll break the game down. It's just it's awesome, honestly. So his website is it's tchoops.blogspot.com, and you can find him on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter anymore, but he's on Twitter most actively at tchoops.czar. That's CZAR. So again, just really, really like diary style accounts of different games. He's at a game, I swear, 5 or 6 days a week. So he's, like Wednesday night, there'll be like 4 games. He'll be at one of them. I was honored as a coach when he came to one of our games. Of course, we were like one of like 3 games that night, but hey, he showed up. So kudos to him. But really unique, really fun. Love his website. So give that a follow as well. Fairly new, the Star Tribune has been expanding their high school sports content website. They had the football hub, the basketball hub. Now they have what's called Strip Varsity. So if you go to the Star Tribune, it's at varsity.startribune.com. They also, it's available within their app too. Most of the high school scores and schedules you don't need a subscription to. Obviously you do if you want to get into the app and use the full rundown of the Star Tribune. I used to work there, so I'm happy to subscribe. I recommend you do as well. But Strip Varsity is really, like I said, expanded their coverage, so they do a great job. Again, all the scores, the schedules, they have some player information like roster, things like that are available there. But that to me, this has been, at least during this last couple football seasons and basketball seasons, the Strip Varsity is new this year. So the football scores this year I really followed through Strip Varsity. I found it's updated and it's pretty on point. So I'll definitely be checking that out during the season here. And then the component to the Strip that's nice is that they'll do their rankings and they do player features and they're all Metro team and they're all Minnesota team and things like that. So the expanded coverage, the reporting power that the Star Tribune has really brings a unique perspective to high school sports. And I think it's really cool that they're putting more resources behind the high school athletes in Minnesota. So again, that's Strip Varsity. On like the recruiting side, Ryan James, who's a local writer, writes a lot for the Gophers, but he also does a lot of recruiting, and he's a big part of the Prep Hoops Minnesota, which is it's mostly on player exposure and scouting and rankings. So if you're interested in who are the top 5 Minnesota-based college recruits, you can go to Prep Hoops, and that's a great platform for that. Again, mostly on Twitter, Prep Hoops MN, Ryan James MN. They'll be at various AAU tournaments throughout the summer, games during the year as well. There's also a girls high school section for Prep Hoops, so Prep Girls Hoops Minnesota as well. So there's a lot of opportunity there through Prep Hoops to follow the local basketball scene in Minnesota. So that's one of the great things. Like we have great teams, great programs, great coaches, great players, and it's really fun to follow that. So I think the more resources we have, I know there's plenty others. I mean, as a former coach in the Fergus Falls area, I coached at Rothsay High School for a while, assisted at Lake Park Audubon, and Craig Olson Sports was the site that we all went to. Craig would call you up, or you'd shoot an email and say, like, here's the recap from our game. And so you really help the kids, tell the story of the game and, who played well, and give kids opportunities. Like maybe it's not just box score stuff, like so-and-so really did a good job of getting deflections and kind of brought some energy. And normally you wouldn't see that in the box score or the write-up in your local paper. And so like Craig Olson always did a great job of that as well. And then I'm sure there's a lot of other local publications that do work like this to, tell the story of the high school game. But those are some of mine. And I'm sure if you have others, send me a note. Send a message on Facebook or Instagram or what have you. But I would love to hear if there's others that you use that you find really helpful in just following the local high school scene. I hope that helps in your coverage and following the game this year. Like I said, December 2nd, Tuesday night here, we got games, a lot of boys games kicking off. Shout out to my niece's team, the West Central Area Knights, coming off a state championship, 1-0 on the season after beating Border West Monday night to kick off their season. All right, that's the show for today. Thanks again to J Schwartz, director at the East Metro Wave AAU basketball program, for joining me. I thought he had provided some really good insights, especially for those parents who may be considering their AAU options, things to think about. Went through a few of the apps and websites to follow local high school programs and scores and get caught up on those types of things if you're into that, and following some of the local teams in your area. And then the other thing I wanted to just touch on briefly here was Timberwolves. So I talked about how I went to the Wolves Celtics games last Saturday. They win that one. They win Sunday against the Spurs. I followed that up with a trip to New Orleans to 3-18 Pelicans, and that just wrapped up. So wanted to make sure I included that here. They win in overtime, struggled through it, but Ant's 40-piece tonight gets them through that win. And a lot of local high school scores coming in tonight for a lot of the boys' games. And it's just a great time of year. Like I said earlier, we'll have another pod hopefully soon, hopefully this weekend. And appreciate you listening. Take care. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook. You can watch this on YouTube if you're so inclined. As always, appreciate you. This has been the Splash City Basketball Podcast.
Back in that bag